Hey, everybody. This is the We Like This podcast. I'm joined today by Jeremy, Ben, and Daryl, and myself. I'm Danon. Like always, today we are talking about two movies. We have Let the Right One In and Let Me In, the Swedish and the American version of a Swedish book, also called Let the Right One In. So, I remember when you first watched these movies, Dad, and these were like you were talking about these nonstop.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to let you take charge of this one.
Okay.
So
the book.
All right. So not even the movies.
Not even into the movie yet.
We got to start where it all started.
Right. So I was born. There was a book written first. It was, in Swedish, because it's in Sweden. And then in 2008, a movie was made called Let the Right One In, based on the book. And it's a love story, coming of age love tale with a vampire. It's about this vampire. She's 12 years old for about 300 years, ish. And she moves into an apartment next to a very lonely boy whose parents are getting a divorce, and he's also being picked on at school pretty seriously by some bullies. And she befriends him. He befriends her, whatever. And she basically sets him up to be her new familiar. And it's a whole movie about that.
Yeah.
And it's tragic and sad and beautiful and wonderful, and I love every fucking thing about it. And the book is great too. And I think they assumed when they made the Swedish film that people are coming to this film because they read the book, because there's some stuff explained in the book that is not explained in the movie.
Yeah.
Right? It's
no
confusing.
Kidding.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't make any sense, and they explain this in the book. So, and having watched the Swedish one again last night, and Matt Reeves' version, which came out in 2010, just 2 years later, I still think that, even more now, I think that the American one is the superior film for many reasons. Mainly the addition of the cop, I think, is huge. It raises the stakes.
That's the biggest difference between the movies, really.
I mean,
is the cop.
It amps up the tension even more.
Yeah.
It also, it gives the movie coherence. I mean, the Swedish film is just it's an incoherent mess from a plot perspective. Beautiful film, but it's just trying to follow along with the plot. You just have to kind of accept that these scenes are happening, and there's nothing that's really tying them together other than the fact that it's the same characters we know.
Yeah, there's a lot inferred. It's one of those type of films, right? They leave up a lot for interpretation. They leave it really open.
I don't want to say that. I actually think the Swedish film nailed a lot of the stuff that should be left unsaid. But there's a lot of things. I guess it's a fine line that I never really realized between leaving things to be inferred versus having just things that feel like plot holes. Having the having the cop doing the investigation in the American film, it makes sense that he would eventually find the apartment where the vampire is staying.
Yeah.
In the Swedish film, you get to know this guy Jacke, but how did he know where this girl lived?
I don't remember now, and I just watched it last night.
I watched it too, and I was very confused. I actually was like, how did he figure this out? And I went through again, and I was just like, oh, I guess he just shows up. There's no actual hints that allow him to know where the girl lives. And
those characters feel secondary.
But
they don't feel part of the film, right?
True.
In a way, they feel very secondary. They feel almost thrown in there to do these parts of the to make up these parts of the book.
Jeremy, the head on your hold on. Hold up your beer.
Too much, yeah.
Hold up your
this second pour.
I
re-poured it. I just got half
man,
head.
we're gonna get flagged for that, dude.
Half head.
Would you pour that from the roof or something?
It was a haphazard. Hap or hap? What's the phrase there?
It's actually called a beer cappuccino.
It was a
you
haphazard.
You should have instead of should have.
Yeah.
So anyways,
admittedly a bad pour.
Yeah. I like what I like about the Swedish one is that it's different, right? And I think when a movie is shot like that, and a lot, like I said, is kind of left for interpretation. Sometimes it can totally fail, right? And in this movie, I think it totally works, and it makes you part of the story in a way. because you kind of have to put things together for yourself. It's not just handed to you. And the American one is better at handing things to you, which is why I still think it's the better film, because the Swedish one, so I had to go back and read the book because the Swedish one was like, I feel like there's so much missing here. You know what I mean? And then when I read the book, I was like, oh,
I want to talk about a lot of that.
Well, I'll tell you what, her current familiar, the old dude, in the Swedish one, his performance is so fucking low key. Oh, I said a bad word already. It's so low key that you don't understand his motivation. Actually, you're like,
no, you
why?
know what though? I figured it out. I wanted to say that I think that the Swedish film handled the familiar aspect of vampires so well, because basically, I think they do a really good job of being like, she's a conventional vampire. You have to invite her in. Like, all these things are conventional, and anybody who knows things about vampire conventions is going to know what a familiar is. And the fact that they never have the scene where the boy picks up the picture, like the old-timey photo booth picture, and is like, she's done this to 12-year-olds before. What is going on here? Like, that is the kind of American kookiness that I'm just like, don't spoil that. Like, it's fine that the plot is more coherent. That's great. But, like, the fact that they never actually say that she does this to 12-year-old boys all the time in the Swedish version, I thought was so much more effective, because it makes you feel so much more unsettled on whether or not you should actually like the vampire girl.
Well, this is getting into...
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Joe. Go ahead.
This is getting into actually my biggest problem with the Matt Reeves version, and why I actually didn't love watching it that much, is that the Swedish version is great. It almost leaves a little bit too... It's almost not coherent enough.
Yeah.
But the Matt Reeves version, I feel like there are times where they are just trying to fucking force feed me all this information. Mm-hmm. Like, they're just, I feel like I'm getting force fed, like I'm getting strapped down in my, you know, like there are certain scenes in the movie, especially with the bullies, and I'm sure we'll get into the bullies later.
It's true. Okay.
I'm sure we'll get into the bullies later, but can I just say that all the scenes with the bullies, I'm just like, oh my God, here we go again with the bullies who are just irrationally angry, irrationally violent towards him specifically. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's so force-fed. I just feel like, how many times have we seen this?
You guys obviously didn't have bullies like that in the 90s. In the 80s, it was like that. I'm telling you.
Sure, and you know what?
Brutal.
But here's...
they got away with a lot.
To speak more directly, I think I didn't have that much experience with bullies, and the bullies that I did have experience with were never bullies that would, I think, try and to pick on me physically, but they were like verbal bullies, you know?
Yeah.
I never experienced bullies that would ever
pull your underwear
pick on me. I'm a big guy.
Yeah.
But so the kind of bullies I experienced were different. So fair enough. But I mean, and again, spoilers. But at one point, there's this whole thing where they're threatening to stab him in the eye and stab his eye out and all this stuff. I'm like,
well, they do that in the Swedish one too.
Like, bully's gonna bully. But
they do it in the
are
Swedish
we really
one,
threatening to like stab people's eyes out now as a bully? Like, that's violent.
Well,
and the wedgie scene in Matt Reeves' version, the
yeah.
wedgie scene's like the most R-rated wedgie scene I've ever seen. I can't believe
it's rugged.
It is so uncomfortable to watch, and it's a wedgie scene. Like, why should I care? But it is so uncomfortable, and that was actually a good scene in the movie. I did like it because it made me feel really uncomfortable.
Well, you gotta really hate the bullies that way, because later in the movie, when they get their heads fucking torn off, you're like,
I realize that.
Tear
I
their
realize
heads
that
off,
when I watch
you know?
it and then I see them just get murked in bloody fashion. I'm like, well, I can't feel too bad, because the one guy did actually threaten to stab him in the eye, right? And these bullies have been so bad. So fair enough. But I did just, I guess to my point, I just felt like some parts of it were too on the nose.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, like for me, like the familiar in the Swedish one, like I said, he plays it so low key. You're like, what the hell is he even here doing this? Makes no sense. Where in the American version, it may be a little handed to you, but they go into, to me, that kid finding the picture and just the reaction or the interactions between Richard Jenkins' character and Chloe Grace Moretz's character was so much more poignant.
Oscar and Ellie.
Yes,
right?
and that was a scene which I felt wasn't too force-fed. I felt that was just right. Seeing
I
the
thought-
picture,
I
it
was
totally
like,
tied
don't
it together
show me
for
the
me.
picture. I really did.
I have something I would like to input here.
Go
So,
ahead.
on all this stuff with the familiar and the old dude, Swedish and American. So in the book, we learn why that guy is there, and it's too much.
I'm glad
it's too
they
much
left
to
it out
enjoy.
of the movie. I'm glad they left it out of the movie.
It's sickening. So basically, what this guy is He was an elementary school teacher who was fired because he was in possession of child pornography. So you realize that the entire reason that he is there is because he can prey on this little girl, and it is disgusting, and it does not make you feel good. Which I get is the reason. And he kind of gets what's coming to him. But I like, and they don't really touch on it all that much in the Swedish one, but in the American one, they kind of turn it on its head a little bit, and they make it something. Well, I'll get into it. So that scene where Owen finds the photo booth picture, that's of the old guy and Abby back when they first meet, right? And he's about 12 years old. So what you realize in the American version is that this old dude is there because he loves her. And he's been in love with her for years.
And that Owen is the exact same thing.
And he's the exact same one. He's the next one, like my dad said.
It paints her
he's the new familiar.
Because it's like she's a monster or something, you know?
Again, the Swedish guy, without knowing anything from the book, what's his motivation to be there? There's none. I can't see any of it.
In
right?
the Swedish version, you have no idea.
Like I said, he plays the character so low key, and that was obviously the director who had that. So like when he's got when he's in the gym or whatever, and he's got that kid upside down, he's about to bleed him out and stuff like that, and they're breaking the door in, and he's it's a great shot. We got them in the background, he's up front, and he pours the crap on his head. You're like, why are you doing that? Why are you so worried about hiding your identity to protect Abby? You've never, not Abby, but Ely or whatever her name was. Yeah. The Swedish one. You've never even emoted anything. You know what I mean? Where we get that from the American one, and that's why I like the American one so much better. And I like that they add in the line in the American one where Richard Jenkins says, maybe I want to get caught. Because from the dude, the dude in the Swedish guy, that is one of the worst, sloppiest murderers I've ever seen in my life. This guy hasn't been caught yet, right? Everything he does is completely sloppy. Where at least with Richard Jenkins' character, it makes sense. He's all sick of this, you know. I like that stuff better. I think it filled out the story better, and I personally like because the story in the book is so gross to me. That part, I want him to be in love with her instead.
It's easier to digest because like
it makes more sense that
they don't give you enough in the book to want to hate this person. So when he does die, to me at least, it didn't feel like, oh yeah, he got it, what he deserved. But their entire relationship was just so gross that when he died, I was just kind of like, okay, I'm glad he's gone, but I wasn't like, this is vilified in a way. You know, I'm glad to be over that. It was just too much.
Yeah. When the Richard Jenkins character pours the acid on his face, it's because he's trapped in the car. It makes sense. You know what I mean? And that scene is brilliant. I love that scene. It's all shot from the back of the kid. You know, it stays
that entire car scene where he jacks up the one guy. I think he kills him.
The tension there is so much stronger than the bathroom scene. The bathroom scene is more beautifully shot, I think, but the tension is so much more palpable in the American version.
Him wearing the bag with the eye holes pulled out is so creepy, man.
And don't sleep on it because both of his kill scenes are actually pretty cool. The one with the train, that's the first time
that's great
in the movie where I was like, oh, this is cool. I like the way they shot that. With the train, right before the train cuts the image off from view, you see him jump him, and then the car doesn't move after the train leaves. Like, that was cool. I thought that was a cool shot. And same thing with the second kill, where he's like driving backwards and the whole camera's in the back of the car. Yeah. That was cool. And then you see it'd be interesting if the American one had these little things that you guys didn't like about it. And I agree that they're a little too much handing it to you.
Especially after watching the Swedish film. I think a big problem with watching the Swedish one first is that you're thinking a lot about it, and then you watch the American one and you're like, well, okay, just fucking hit me over the head with it, like, whatever.
I had a couple of years in between them too. Like from when I watched the Swedish one, and then when the American one came out, and I went and even saw it in the theater. I'd forgotten some of the things. One thing that I don't like about both the films is the CGI.
I was gonna say we're blessed with those two kill scenes in the American version.
The cats are god awful, dude.
It's not even just the cats. Even in the American version, when she's killing people,
when she attacks them,
so much.
Anytime she's a vampire, kind of
like the Swedish version does it so well because she just kind of hugs them, and it's like you're like, oh god, like there must be some like gnarly shit happening, like while she's hugging the guy. In the American one, she's like, like flying around like Yoda.
You're just
dumb.
Like, come
on, we gotta ruin this beautiful movie with this ridiculous action.
I know, right?
Basically, I mean, she's curled up in that walk space.
Oh,
I like how they made
attacks the guy.
the neighbor chick that eventually becomes the vampire and catches fire in the hospital. I love that part.
God.
Oh, it's so
That's
good.
so cool.
That she's a neighbor and not just these weird detached people that are hanging out in a bar.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That kind of don't feel connected to the film.
It's
I
like
think that was better.
It's a separate group of characters that doesn't really matter with the story all that much, but they show them a lot in the Swedish version.
They feel like they're jammed in there for these plot points.
Yeah.
And I also love how the American one opens up on that dark, snowy scene, and you can see the cop car and the thing they haul people around when they're going to the hospital. Ambulance. Mm-hmm. I love all that stuff. I think that's a great way to open a film. You know what I mean? Again, like I said, the Swedish one.
Yeah.
I love that they let it breathe. The Swedish one, they really let it breathe. You know, all the scenes are kind of long and drawn out, and they really let you fill in the gaps with your own emotions and imagination.
One thing that they really screwed up with in the ending of the American one in the pool scene is killing everybody in that room instead of sparing the one.
I did like that in the Swedish one.
Yeah.
I don't know why that resonated with me, but just the fact that the fat kid was there sitting on the bench and like with his head in his hands and everybody else was dead, and it just stays on that scene. They tried to recreate that in the American one, but it just didn't have as much
with the kid this time being the one who's got his hands over his eyes and whatever.
And
he's not even in the film. I don't think
his character is there when they're picking on him in the bathroom in the American version, and the bell rings, and then I think the lead bully whips him across the face with that antenna, and he's like, "Dude," and he's like, "What?" And the bully's like, "How?" Yeah, you explain that to his mom.
That antenna part.
The same
hilarious.
character is there, but they kill him. They kill off that fat kid too, which I just didn't like.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just like, why change that? It actually, to me, lessened the impact of that scene, because she was only killing the people that were like a threat to her familiar, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And in the American one, how they screwed up too is they cut away from the hand holding him underwater. In the American one, they cut away really quick and then go back to it, and that ruins it.
Yeah.
Where in the Swedish one, it's all underwater,
and he's just his eyes are closed, and he's just.
It's
got
so,
you see the
and all of a
shoes
sudden
in
the hand comes down.
That was
but the American one,
Swedish version.
The head they cut up, and you see the head coming. It was better when the hand just dropped down.
Yeah, because
you're like more effective.
Because you're just like staring at the screen like that.
Yeah.
But that scene in particular was so cool. The way that they did it, American and Swedish. I mean, the fact that they're killing them like this, they don't just gonna get pulled out, and then they're kind of gone, and then the camera would pan up and you see all this gore and everything. But the fact that they're getting dragged through the water upside down,
that was cool.
Basically,
that
from
was super cool.
The top of his chest up, and his hands are in the water, and he's getting dragged through. It's like you realize how violent and vicious that Abby and Ellie can get. It's so cool. But the Swedish version absolutely nailed it because of the tension during that scene and the suspense that you're feeling, because they never cut away. They never show you anything else.
Yeah, the only problem.
Go ahead.
I was going to say the only problem with the Swedish version of the scene is that because of the lack of coherence in the narrative, you really feel like, how did she even know to go there? For some reason in the American one, it's like, even though the same taxi scene happens and he sees her leaving and then he like goes back to practice or whatever,
right?
Like, for some reason, I know what it is. There's the shot where it like shows the sunroof in the pool, and you see that she broke in through the sunroof. And that's like, that explains so much, because you're like, oh yeah, the vampire girl would absolutely be keeping tabs on her familiar, and then she's like sees this whole thing. She's like, oh, I'm just gonna kill all these people.
Yeah.
That's the shot that I don't like that they cut away. Right? I see what you're saying. It makes sense. It makes more sense because she's keeping track of them. You know what I mean? And she's watching him through the window, where the Swedish one, it's all underwater, but I think that was just so much more effective. That and the kid sitting there at the end with his hands covering his face.
They show the broken sunroof after the whole chaos happens.
Yeah. I forget what exactly the cutaway shot is, but then you see all the glass. You hear it's out of the water though, but you hear her scream. You see all the glass. You hear the glass break, and the next shot is all the glass hitting the water, and then the rest of it's underwater.
It's like a very American action scene.
Yeah.
Right, like it feels like every action scene in there really feels very like pop culture-y, and it's out of place because it's such an artsy fartsy film that when you see like kind of a more pop action scene, like I don't think necessarily the CGI is animated poorly. I think that it's just so like it's so pop music compared to the rest of this film that it sticks out like a sore thumb. And no CGI is perfect, so you look at it and you're like, well, it's like this is fake, like this, like it doesn't match the rest of the film.
And even the American version's 10 years old now, right? And we've seen CGI that's a lot better.
That's probably part of it too. And the Swedish version doesn't lean on that
because
at
it's
all.
a little dated.
Except for the cat
I don't
part.
think it was that it was bad CGI. It was just not right for the movie.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah,
just didn't need it. Like you said, her grabbing on someone's back and just sinking her fangs in. That's enough.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Because how shocked would you be? Like the tunnel scene, especially. You go to help some kid, and then she's sinking her fang. You wouldn't know how to react. Like you start beating up this kid right away. You wouldn't even know what the hell was going on. You weren't expecting that. You don't expect to be vampirized by a 12-year-old kid.
Mm-hmm. No. But I'll say, one of the things that this movie kind of got me with early on that I picked up on more in the American version than the Swedish one is that early on, the first time that they meet the vampire Abby, right, and our what's the main character's name again?
Owen in the American version,
right? The one of the first things she says in the movie is, "We won't be friends."
I figured
she says that super early on. Mm-hmm. And then what the hell happens the very next time they see each other? Is that a Rubik's Cube? Is that a puzzle? Can I see that? And all of a sudden they're friends. And it's like, it's just 0 to 100, right? Like, in one scene she says it, and she goes out of her way to say it too. Like, he doesn't even try and be friends with her. She says it right away.
Can I tell you the psychology?
By the way, we're not going to be friends.
The psychology behind that?
No, we don't have 2 hours.
I wasn't
going to get into that. Let me borrow your
Rubik's
Cube.
I wasn't getting into that. I'm just saying, but that's what she was doing, right? Was making him want her
to be
more.
friends with her.
Yeah,
she's definitely honestly, Ellie and Abby. I like Ellie more, but Ellie and Abby both are extremely vindictive, manipulative little minxes. They are not supposed to be likable, and the movie's told from the perspective of the 12-year-old kid. So of course, you get,
they're definitely not likable. That's true. They're not
butterflies,
they're
but
bad.
they're
bad.
They're likable.
And I like the Swedish version more because I left that film thinking, I'm pretty sure, and I guess in the book this isn't the case, but at least this is how I came away from it. It's like I'm pretty sure Hokart is just another dude that she met when he was 12, and then I was thinking, there's that scene where Hokart's being yelled at by somebody off camera, and you think it's some adult woman, and then you're like, no, that had to be Ellie, because Ellie was the only other person. Oh, she's yelling at this poor guy who's just this poor sap who doesn't defend himself and is trying to get blood. And then I had so much more to think about after the Swedish film, and I thought about it a lot.
Yeah.
And then I watched the American one, and I guess I just didn't have enough time to sit on the Swedish one and really digest everything, because I had a lot of theories and floating around in my head, and the American one was just yep, that one is what it is, and that's what it is, and don't have to think about that anymore because that's what it is. Let us take all the thought that you needed to put in after the movie away from you, which it's a weird balancing act, because I don't actually think there's anything wrong with that in a lot of films, but because I came from the Swedish one to the American one, it was like watching it was like my hand was held through the story the second time around.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I appreciated that.
Some time and distance would have been better for that. You know what I mean?
That's true. And I guess the other big thing is that maybe they were counting on a lot of people not have seen the Swedish one.
You can tell they're expecting
making it. They're counting on most people not being of the perspective that we're all from, seeing the Swedish one first.
Well, it's an independent film, and it won a bunch of awards and everything, but it was no huge moneymaker. And the American one made $0. Nobody went and saw it. Nobody cared.
I had never heard of it before doing the podcast.
It's really well done. I will say, though, that the kid actors from the Swedish film are so much stronger. Than
they are.
And I was surprised because I like Chloe B. Moritz. I thought that she was really good and kick-ass and whatever, but I didn't recognize the kid. But I think it was just weaker performances, and honestly, I didn't feel like Abby was as manic pixie dream girly as Ellie. You know what I mean? I didn't really get why Owen would like Abby as much as I understood why Oscar would like Ellie. And part of that, I think, is just the amount of time that they spend together in the Swedish one versus the American one. Like Jeremy said, there's 1.5 scenes where they don't like each other in the American version, but that's like a 30-minute plot all on its own in the Swedish one. Like she's,
that's a good point.
She doesn't even want his Rubik's Cube. She's like, I'm not going to come here tomorrow. Like, I don't want your like stupid little thing, but you can tell that she does like Rubik's Cubes. And then, it's just, it feels like, it feels a little bit more forced in the American one, where it's just like, these two kids have to eventually like each other, so let's just knock that out in 15 minutes, and then we can get along with the plot. Like, the American one was like, we got to focus on the plot.
Get on with the formalities here.
Everything else sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my feeling about it.
It's I like I said, I think part of the reason why, part of the reason why I like the American one better too, is because Stranger Things did an amazing job capturing the 80s, but this movie, like I've never seen except for movies in the 80s, captured exactly how, I mean, I could smell that arcade.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I knew what that arcade smelled like.
I want to talk about
really quick.
Oh, go ahead.
The bullies too. It was rough in the 80s, guys. I'm telling you, man. I saw a kid get his underwear pulled up all over his head, and he was covering his face like he was being violated.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. It was horrible. The kids in my neighborhood, oh my God, the beatings we took, the fights we got into, it was hardcore in the 80s because there was no one to stop it.
Right, and now there's like all these modern anti-bullying policies in schools and stuff, but that
seeing these bullies in both versions, was like, I was like, well, yeah, this is what it was like.
So in the Swedish version, I don't know if this is a cultural thing or just like artistic direction that the movie took, but there are some really, really awkward scenes where it's like, is this how people behave? A great example of this is the one where the kid, Oscar, is at his dad's house, and they're playing cards, and then the dad's friend shows up and doesn't say anything. He's just like, hey, Oscar, which is Swedish for hello, Oscar. And then he sits down, and like Oscar's like, so what's your card? And then the dad's like, I'm not cutting out, by the way. This is literally like in the scene. Yeah. He's that silent, and then he gets up, doesn't say anything to his son, walks into the kitchen, grabs a bottle of vodka, and then the kid's like, well, hey, Dad, are you going to continue playing with me? And he's like, we have a guest. And then he sits down, doesn't say another word. The guest doesn't say another word. They both pour a shot of vodka and light a cigarette, and then there's 30 seconds of them just drinking vodka, smoking cigarettes, and not saying anything while Oscar is staring at them like, have you lost your minds? This is not how humans hang out. Like, what is happening? And I felt the same way. I was like, what is going on? Is this really...
Yeah, no, I felt that too. But I just kind of chalked that whole scene up to, this is an art house film. Have you ever seen, art house films that's like artsy film, they do that shit all the time. They do things that no normal people would do in these artsy films.
It could have been cultural too.
I was wondering
could be a cultural thing, yeah.
What I was thinking,
willing to write that off though, as just, this is how the film is.
There's just too many
How
of
I
those
took
moments.
it is that the way the scene played out for me was that when this guy came over, right, it was now no longer Dad and his Oscar hanging out, and his Oscar got his own fish. Oscar and his dad hanging out. It was Dad and this guy drinking while Oscar gets to watch them, dude. Watch them, and then wash your Oscar, and then go off to bed while these guys stay up drinking all night. That's how I took it. But you're right. I think it was a little art housey too. I think you're right, Jeremy. That's
it has no point in the movie. There's no reason for it.
No, well, I mean, it does...
and it doesn't have to for a movie like that. There's a lot of other scenes like that in the movie.
It does try to just, expound on the fact that the kid, like, even with, obviously, the person he cares about the most, which is his dad, because it's the only time you see him actually having fun in the movie, in the Swedish version, is when he's riding on that little sled behind his dad's tractor.
Yeah.
So it kind of does help to say, like, oh, he's even isolated from his dad, which I totally understand. Mm-hmm. But it was just so inhuman. And there's a lot of scenes like that in the movie where it's like, just talk, say something. And maybe this is, and I think that is an American thing, because the American one has the classic, dead body, I'm screaming. You know, and the Swedish one, like, I thought that was actually great because when she sees the body hanging from the tree in the beginning of the Swedish one, there's no scream. She just goes, yeah. And I was like, that's actually probably more realistic. But then there's scenes where it's like, I'm going to go ask that guy to hang out with us by sitting at his table and then staring at him uncomfortably for 30 seconds in the bar. He's like, look at this guy drinking milk. Should I ask him to hang out? And then he's like...
Yeah, that was... You just sit there... I think Jeremy's right. It's art house stuff. It's got to be.
It was very, very strange to me.
Well, one thing I liked about the American one, too, is the dad wasn't in it. He was on the phone call once.
Yeah, good call not having the dad in the movie.
I think that's realistic. You can't show Owen or Oscar having any positive outlet. You know what I mean? And it makes more sense why this kid would get on a train with a murderous vampire. Because the kid has nothing. He doesn't even have a father to go to. He calls up and dad says, you think evil's real? He's like, what are you talking about? Your mother putting this shit in your head again? It's that the reaction, right? And it's what I think that scene is so important because it shows you Owen's got nobody.
Yeah. That scene made me really mad. It was one of the few scenes in the movie that actually made me mad. I was like, I can't believe you're writing your kid off like that. He's trying to tell you something important.
Well,
it's good, bad, or indifferent.
They do it in such
He's got one.
I just want to say they do it in such a real way, right? Like the dad is trying to be protective of him, but at the same time, you realize he's being protective, quote unquote, but he still wants to go yell at the mom again. Right.
Yeah.
And
he's not actually listening to what the kid is saying.
Yeah.
He's talking right past the kid.
He doesn't care.
Which sucks.
He's just
immediately is like, I want to stop talking to you on the phone. Put your mom on.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like he doesn't even care about the kid. But a quick fun fact: the guy who played the cop in the American version actually did the voice of the dad on the phone. That was him.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I love that actor. That actor is great.
Yeah.
He's a big guy in a lot of stuff.
I know I recognize
Elias
him.
Koteas, I think.
Yeah, Elias Koteas. You've seen him in a ton of little things.
I've seen him in stuff.
But I don't know of a movie where I've like, that's where he's from.
The Fourth Kind. The Fourth Kind.
The Fourth Kind.
Okay, yeah, see, but even still like that, like I recognized him in Fourth Kind. I was like, I know that guy, but he's not Mark Strong. I don't know why, but he looked like Mark Strong in that movie.
Have you guys seen Some Kind of Wonderful?
Too.
See, yeah, he looks kind of like a harder Mark Strong.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen Some Kind of Wonderful?
No.
80s movie? Mm-mm. Well, he's in that as this like skinhead type guy. So he's been around for a long time doing that. He just plays little bit guys. He's a character actor, right? He's fantastic. I love him and stuff.
Oh yeah, he was great. Like
really quickly, how about the scene in the Swedish one where she's changing in the dress?
Oh, and you get the cutaway shot of her stitched up lady parts.
Yeah. What?
Not
you know
lady parts.
So that's that's something that they put in the Swedish one. It makes sense in the book as I explain it in the book, but it doesn't make sense. I mean, what did you think of that part, Ben? When you saw it, like, what did it make you think?
Just like some vampire shit. Looked like her vagina was all cracked up and stuff.
That's what I thought too.
In the American one, they don't do it at all, thank God, because it's too confusing.
They couldn't have possibly have done something like that.
I know the scene in the American one where they just completely cut away, right? They just cut to the kid and his eyes is closed,
and then he just walks away.
Yeah. Which was a better way to go, I think.
Is like I said, it's explained in the book. So Eli or whatever her name is,
Yelly.
Yelly. I can't pronounce. I'm not Swedish.
Ben is.
Say Yelly, like you're feeling a little Yelly.
Okay. All right, Yelly. So Yelly, when Yelly was castrated. So Yelly's a boy. They got castrated and then turned into a vampire at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so that's why she kept saying, "I'm not a girl."
Job.
And they do tiny little nods to this in both versions, but there's a very significant scene in the American one. What's that look, Jeremy?
It just blew my mind because I was like, oh, in the American one, she refuses to identify herself as a girl.
Yeah, she's. And
I thought the whole time,
she does the same thing in the Swedish one.
Yeah, she's old, but she's still a girl, right? I mean, yes, she's not 12, but she's still a girl. Why not identify yourself as a girl? I didn't know that, though. That makes a lot more sense.
And in the Swedish one, the girl's voice is actually dubbed by a different actor.
Yeah.
Because, and that's why they chose her, because she was androgynous. Mm-hmm. And they also, because her normal voice was too high, so they redubbed her voice to be more masculine, to have that androgynous feel. Because, I said,
really quick, I think this is an important note. Did you guys watch the dubbed version or the subtitled version?
Subtitle, of course.
Subtitle.
Okay, yeah, because in the Swedish version, it's actually more of a character trait that Yelly is like I'm not a girl. Like
Yeah.
she's like she asks him 3 or 4 times. In the American one, she says it like once or twice.
Yeah, there's like 2 significant parts. There's that one where they're laying in bed.
Yeah.
And then I think when they want to do the blood pact again in that little hidey hole that Owen shows her, I think they talk about it again. But yeah, she says it in a way where she's like, I see what my takeaway when I first, because I watched the American version first. That's just how it was. That's just how I came upon it. Yeah. So watching that part, I was just like, okay, well, she thinks of herself as a monster, and that's why she's saying,
I thought the exact same thing.
Would you still like me if I wasn't a girl? And then he's like, I guess. And so I was just like, okay, well, she thinks of herself as a monster, not human anymore. And she's disconnecting from that. But then when I watched the Swedish one, and then I was like, that scene with like Ben put it perfectly, it looked like a cracked up vagina. I was just like I don't remember this in any vampire lore, and they stick to it in vampire lore. Yeah. Like they are like by the book. And so I was just like, what the hell is this? It shouldn't have been in there because they never explain it. They never explain it. You'd have to read the book and say like, oh, okay.
You could throw out a lot of scenes in the Swedish movie because they never explain it.
I'm saying
that's what I was saying again.
You can throw out 30% of that movie because it's all scenes
going
that
again
make
with
no sense.
the whole art house thing. I was like, that's a weird thing. Mm-hmm. And I knew when I saw it, I was like, I bet you they're not going to explain that.
Yep.
Maybe that's what it is I like about the American one. It's nostalgia for sure because of the 80s, but I think it's a more coherent story.
Yes.
It is.
Yeah. Even with the little things that are maybe a little too much given to you. And like I said, I like the idea that the Richard Jenkins character is in love with the Abby character.
It makes it so much
that
more
makes
powerful.
more sense to me why he would have spent his whole life, right? His whole life being this vampire's familiar. Because he loves her. You know what I mean? With his Swedish one, without knowing it again, it's because he wants to molest her. That's what he's sticking around for. And it's disgusting.
Which is so crazy, right?
Too much
it's too gross.
Honestly.
It's too gross for you to care about that relationship.
It is too gross, but also, like, could you ever try and molest a girl who could rip your face off? I mean, she would, like, as soon as you did something, as soon as you assaulted her in a way that she wouldn't come, why would she let you?
She's playing him in the book, if I remember correctly, though. She's playing him in the book.
No, of course she is.
She keeps letting him think that he's going to get that.
Well, there's a scene that happens, I think it's only in the book, where he's about to go on that last kill. And he says, I think he says in the book or the Swedish version, that he's only going to do it that one last time. Because he's getting iced out anyway. He realizes he's getting iced out by this new kid, Oscar or Owen, in both versions. And so he's like, I'm going to do this one last time. In the book, he asks if he goes and does this kill, when he comes back, can he lay next to her and touch her?
Yeah.
And
I think you're right.
It's just too much, dude.
In the book, you said?
It's just too much.
That is too much. You're
but
right.
that's a classic book thing, dude. Like Stephen King even has, scenes that are way
like
too
notorious.
much.
He's got some stuff that needs to be cut out.
And where all those, it's just.
So I get that. That's like totally just like a book thing. It's more accepted in that community. But like to be more like darker, basically, because you're just putting it into words. Then you see it in a film, and you're like, this is way too much. Like in the Swedish film, like showing the castrated, groins of a 12-year-old is something that might get away. Like you might get away with that in an art house film that's independent and overseas. But like the American one was filmed to be like a blockbuster. It feels like a blockbuster. And so to put a scene even remotely close to that in this version, it would have just it just wouldn't have worked. Like
no, you're right, it wouldn't. Not the way it was filmed.
Yeah.
And it's honestly a great. It demonstrates the microcosms of culture, right? Of like book culture versus art house culture versus like blockbuster culture. It's like this is how far we can take this story and how dark it can be in each of these things. The American one is way more violent and gory. The Swedish one is just like so subdued to the point where you're like, do these people even communicate to each other? Like say something. And the book obviously delves way too far into the backstories and makes you feel gross for having read it. Yeah. So I think they all have their pros and cons. I think that the real takeaway is just that like the American and Swedish versions both have stuff that's really good about them and stuff that's just like falls totally flat.
Really quick, I want to touch on one thing. I wanted to see if you guys noticed this. But you never see his mom's face.
Yeah.
Never see his mom's face in the American version.
I think it's important.
And they get very
in
close.
the American version, yeah. I was thinking in the
Then he's
Swedish version, you
disconnected from
totally
it.
Really?
They never show
I would
her
have
face.
to go back and
they
watch
get,
it all over
They
again.
get so
I don't remember
so
that.
close. They get so close so many times, but they specifically don't show her because, again, like my dad said earlier, they're showing that disconnect that he has from even his own parents. Where yes, she says she cares about him, but
Yeah.
He's
They
got
do. Okay,
nothing.
so they do. I'm
got
remembering
nothing.
one scene very specifically where they do technically show her face, but it's a really zoomed out shot.
I think it's when
right
she's
where
calling his
she's
name or
calling him
something.
in
Yeah.
for dinner.
yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
right.
it's all,
And
it's,
And she's,
They
I think
sort of-
her face is in shadow or something.
it's
Yeah,
blurry.
yeah. No, you're right. I guess they don't really show her.
No. And it's
on
actually
the face,
Cara
yeah.
Buono,
Yeah,
If you ever
she's
seen her. the mom from Stranger Things.
yeah.
Oh,
One of the
funny.
moms,
Funny.
one of the moms from Stranger Things. Yeah,
I
that's
think
Cara Buono.
she's Nancy's mom. Nancy
Yeah,
and
Nancy's
the main
mom. Yeah,
bowl
yeah.
cut head kid, Finn Wolfhead Hard, whatever that kid's name is. I don't know.
Finn
Wolf-
Did you
Wolfhead.
notice that the bullies in the American version had the most like
Justin Bieber haircut.
2010 haircuts?
The bowl cut.
Like,
Dude, those
immediately
were
saw him.
That was
2010
me, dude.
haircuts.
That was me.
I was like, yeah.
So
I
I
thought
would
about
actually, you know what? I am
thought Damon's
wondering,
haircut
Daryl,
in
is that
2000.
haircut like is that a haircut from the 80s?
Those were not 2010 haircuts, guys.
They've been around for a long time.
Those were early 80s haircuts.
The swooshy,
Go back
the
and watch
swoopy,
stuff from the
swooshy
early
thing
80s.
going on. That
Yes.
seems like so early to mid 2000s for me.
Like if you watch Little House on the Prairie, which was shot in the 80s, everyone has 80s haircuts. All the kids have
Yeah.
that annoying bowl that the main bully kid has.
yeah,
It looks like
yeah.
a 2010 haircut, remember?
It looks like a Justin Bieber haircut. Totally
does,
does.
yeah.
It does.
You know,
It's
and
not,
that's
though.
really what it
Those
is.
were
It looks
common
like a
haircuts.
Justin Bieber / like, you know, kind of early 2000s.
Everything comes
pop
back
star.
around, man. All
Yeah,
styles.
it's all in circles,
You know?
huh?
All styles
Yeah, I
and
guess
circles,
you're
they
right.
just mix them up. So that's what's funny to me is like I'm like, well, yeah, this is that's what I'm saying is like the American one nailed the 80s from the and they don't jam it down your throat. It's very subtle and it's
I
the
like
only
the
reason why I
little
like it.
smattering of Reagan in the movie.
Yes,
That was
I
great
like
too,
the Evil
yeah.
Empire speech.
Little
is pretty
periodically, you'll see like Reagan in the background of the movie,
Really-
just to remind
really
you subtly.
Cements
You know, oh,
that
this
it's
is the 80s.
It's the 80s. And really
It was
quickly
cool.
on the American one, again, why I loved it so much is because of the relationship between the Richard Jenkins character. I don't know if it's the father is what his name is. That's what he's known as. And the Abby character. It's so sad
Yeah.
and tragic. And so when he sacrifices himself for her, you know, gives her his neck for her to, and she just eats him and drops him out the goddamn
And then
window.
immediately
Yeah.
goes
It's
to her
so
hot
much
boy's
more.
house.
Yeah,
Just flies right over there. But I mean, like, it's so much more tragic and sad and poignant, and it hits home a lot harder for me, and that's why I like it better than the Swedish one. But the Swedish one also, the shots, it's shot beautifully, and the pool scene was better. I honestly, I personally don't like the relationship between Oscar and Yeely. I don't think it's as good as the American one. I really don't.
yeah,
Really?
I do
yeah.
agree.
The American one's a little bit better.
Like I like the part where he's at school and he's working on the Morse code that the 1968 Zaffarelli's version of Romeo and Juliet is being played at school, which they showed at school at the time. I think that just sends it more home that he's in love with her, and which makes sense why he would be so loyal to her. You know what I mean? I just like that all better because I'm a romantic.
Yeah.
So I like all that better, and to me, it makes more sense why they would stick around
So
as
funny.
long as they would.
I did not.
and
pick
why
up
they
on
get
the
on a
chemistry between
train.
them like that.
What?
I
what's
didn't.
that?
I didn't feel like the chemistry was as palpable in the
Really?
American version. I thought it made a lot of sense in the Swedish version, but like it also felt like a very childish kind of love, and that's actually
Yeah.
what made me feel like she was manipulating him. Actually, in the Swedish version,
Yeah.
without any of the stuff in the background, or not even in the background, without any of the stuff in the foreground being like, she's bad, look at, like, she does this to other people. You know, it's just like, I get a really uneasy feeling about her. She seems so innocent and whatever, but like, she's telling him she's 12, and like, she's got this Hokart guy, which is the name of the dad in the Swedish version.
Okay,
And he's
that's a great name.
yeah, Hokart. And so
Sounds like Hogarth.
yeah,
Well,
and he's
I-
kind of like this wimpy loser that doesn't stand up to her when she's yelling at him. I'm like,
Yeah.
man, and she had to be the one yelling at him. Like, you know, getting back to that again, I'm just like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
no, she's totally playing this kid, and I liked that. I like that moment of discovery of like she's playing the kid. The American woman's like,
Yeah.
she's playing him. He likes her, but she's playing him. And you're like, oh, you know, it just. Yeah, I don't know.
You know what?
That's how I
it
experience
is, though. Actually, I honestly think that the big difference in chemistry has to come down to the actors and actresses.
That's what I agree.
The kids.
I'm kind of both.
The
camps.
kids actually. I don't know that guy's. I've seen him too. The kid who's in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen him around too. Him and the Chloe. What's her name? I think they have better chemistry in the American one. Too. I just think they have better chemistry. So that kid's better.
From The Road. Did you ever see The Road?
The Road.
Yes. That's Papa.
Yeah, they actually got they filmed that movie before Kick-Ass and The Road were released.
Yeah, she's younger than she is in Kick-Ass for sure.
No, she's older. She's older than she was in Kick-Ass.
Older?
But Kick-Ass and The Road were released after they shot that movie.
Oh,
so they shot Kick-Ass and The Road, then they shot Let Me In, and then Kick-Ass and The Road were released.
Because didn't Kick-Ass come out like 2010, 2011?
So did Let Me In.
Same time, huh?
Yeah. So
Let Me In came out 2010.
Yeah. My point is that they were found before the movies that they're known for came out. Like the movies that really skyrocketed them came out. So
it makes a lot of sense because Chloe B. Moritz is not like
Chloe Grace.
Grace. I keep saying B. For some reason.
I was like,
so what were you saying? What were you
Chloe B. Moretz?
Chloe B.
Yeah, Chloe B. Moretz instead of Chloe Grace Moretz.
If Chloe Moretz is
the emancipation
right
of Chloe B. Moretz.
It just flows, dude. I don't know. Chloe, if you're watching this, think about changing your name there. It goes better.
This works better.
I have one suggestion to make.
Pick two. Don't have three.
But
selfish.
And her middle name is Barbara or something dumb.
Yeah. So
then she has no.
So,
name.
anyways,
can't have middle names if you got four names.
My whole thing was that I guess she's kind of been typecast in my head because she does not play to her type at all in this movie, and that makes total sense about the filming thing. Mm-hmm. So just she plays this totally different from any other character I've seen her.
Yeah, it's pretty low key, pretty subdued, but that's the whole movie. That's all the characters in the movie.
Oh yeah, it wouldn't be successful without that. It was just kind of weird seeing a familiar face doing something so different, and then you realize oh, you have really been typecast as this kind of punkish, edgy girl, as opposed to just somebody who's a female that can do any part.
Which is funny because that's really just two movies, right? It's Kick-Ass and the sequel to Kick-Ass.
Yeah,
that's really what the typecast is about. Is she punk rock? Is she this punk rock girl? Any other movie? Or is it just the one movie that skyrocketed her?
Is she even in other movies? I mean, she's 23 now. What's she in now?
I don't even know.
She was in some one of these teenage series of books movies. They only made one of them because it sucked. I went and saw it with Amber, I think. You know, the one with the Dauntless and all that stuff. The girl.
Oh, is it it's a
series of teenage
Maze
books
Runner or
what's
that? One of those.
Okay.
Maze Runner or Divergent. That's one of those two.
Yeah,
Divergent. I think it's Divergent.
It was like that.
Okay.
It was but it wasn't Divergent. It was that style of books.
Yeah. That
teens.
post-apocalyptic books that came out after Hunger Games.
They made one. Yeah. It wasn't very good, so they didn't make any more. Whether it's aliens have invaded kind of thing. Yeah. I don't remember what it's called, but she did that and not really much else. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't really seen her much besides Kick-Ass. I do want to say really quick.
Very talented actress.
The Swedish version, they spent an entire year finding the two leads, an entire year to cast those two kids, and because they wanted to make sure that the chemistry was good. So I do agree with Ben here in this moment. Is because because the acting was better, they were able to portray those feelings of the characters much better, and so you feel it a lot more in the Swedish version. But in the American version, I like their relationship better. I don't know what it is about it. I guess it's the Owen's innocence and the fact that she's preying on it so heavily is just so.
Because Oscar's not innocent at all. You know, they really dial up this kid, and she even calls it out. Yelly is like, Oscar, you want to kill people. I have to kill people. We're perfect for each other. There's never a moment like that in the American one.
That's actually, I forgot about that part. That is a great part.
It's true because in both movies have that same scene where the kid is stabbing the tree with the knife in frustration.
But it feels a lot more,
But in the American one, they touch on that. I remember it really stood out to me the first time we see that kid. He's half naked. He's got a freaking Halloween mask on, and he's got this huge
mask.
And it seems like, this kid's kind of crazy.
He also has
once he starts talking
he has
to
the newspaper clippings in the Swedish version too, and he doesn't have that
of the murders.
Yeah, he sort of drops the whole like I want to murder my bullies thing like halfway through the movie. Whereas in the Swedish one, not so much. Like he's always got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder about them. I think halfway through the movie.
And
no, he definitely seems like he's a sociopath. He's like a sociopath in training in the American one.
Yeah.
And you get that the kid is messed up in the head. Owen feels like a normal kid that's just like kind of down on his luck. At no point did I feel like this kid's going to grow up to be a
desire to want to get back at his bullies is not a psychotic like, oh, this guy's gone crazy thing. It's a very real, normal reaction to have, right? You're getting bullied like he is. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Whereas in the other one, I feel like that kid like really wants to murk those bullies.
Jeremy was just stuck.
And Jeremy, you're like,
yeah,
like this. It was great.
Oh, really?
So one of my favorite scenes in the American one too is when the cop kicks in the door at the apartment and goes in the bathroom finally, and then she attacks him, and Owen goes up there.
And he's like
his hand out. And he reaches his hand out and he just closes the door. Oh, God,
I love that scene. That was a great scene.
It's a good one.
And what was so great about that scene too is right then and there, you're like, you know that, okay, Owen is in, even though he's terrified of what's going on and he can't, this is disgusting. And he's in. He's now her protector. And that's
you know what though?
means.
She didn't kiss him in that scene, did she?
In the American version?
In the American version.
She does kiss him.
She comes out and hugs him, tells him, I got to go away, gives him the bloody kiss.
Okay.
It's just
that kiss is so like that is such a perfect kiss in both.
It really is.
Like just like
both movies.
It's so gross. It's like it's disgusting on so many levels, and you're just like,
it's almost like in a way like she's testing him by giving him the bloody kiss. Like if you can take this bloody kiss and you're still in, then you're in. You know what I mean?
That's a good
it's
point.
Like the last
300-year-old in a 12-year-old's body trying to see if like the 12-year-old can keep up with her kinks. Like, oh god, it's like I mean that whole thing right there. Like the fact that she's playing a child molester in the book. It's like she's 300 years old. She's being a child molester to Oscar or Owen. You know, it's like
pretty much grooming him to at least be a familiar.
At least grooming. Yeah, I mean, she doesn't. You know, he wants to ask her to go steady.
She gets into bed with him.
Nah, let's keep things the way they are.
Vampires are sexless anyways, right? So
I guess
they're not interested in it.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the lore of like Dracula types, right? They're like very seductive and whatever, but it's really just because they want to suck your blood.
To bring you in. They're just because they're predators. And the if you don't invite a vampire in and they come out and they just bleed out, I don't think I've ever seen that in a film before. It usually is.
It's just
if you don't invite them in, they have no power.
I thought there was like a physical barrier that they couldn't cross. Like they just like weren't.
See me.
Would you like to come in? Sure. What We Do in the Shadows. Great movie.
Oh, man. Actually, I mean, you know what We Do in the Shadows is still my favorite vampire film. I thought these were great.
would have to say it's my favorite vampire movie. Just because they hit all the points, but they make it so ridiculous. It's just so good.
Great.
I have to watch it again.
On this movie, I'm very happy that I did not know that it was a vampire film when I was watching the Swedish version.
That's why your text like, this is a vampire movie?
I thought the reveal was
because I didn't know it was a vampire film until I saw your text.
Oh, really? I'm sorry.
Yeah. And then I was like, oh, it's a vampire film.
Oh, it was. Ben's like, this is a fucking vampire movie? Question mark, lol.
Yeah.
And my dad just like, yes.
And that was the next day. I waited the whole next day. I'm like, yes.
Yeah, I know. That was like, honestly, I'm very happy that I got to experience it that way. Jeremy, I'm sorry that I took that magic from you, but
yeah, right.
Yeah, from the very first time I watched the movie, I was like, always in the back of my head, I was like, Ben told me it's a vampire movie.
Yeah.
Okay, you know what? Now that we're doing little gripes, though, there's a scene in the Swedish film where he's stabbing the tree. It's the first time he meets Ellie, and in the American one, it's the first time that he meets Abby. And he turns around and she's standing on the jungle gym. In the Swedish one, she's standing on the top of the jungle gym. That's how mad I am about it. In the American one, she's only standing on the first step.
Yeah. And in the Swedish one, she jump floats down to the ground.
Yeah, she kind of like steps forward and falls straight down into the snow. And it's like, that's really freaking weird. What's wrong with you, weirdo? In the American one, they don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think they didn't want to. I didn't think they want to give it away so quick. Because it's such a strange jump. She's clearly almost flying kind of jump. I don't think the American one they wanted to get for people who didn't know anything about it. They don't think they wanted to give it away that quick.
I guess.
But and in the American one, which is cool, is that we see before we ever get a hint that she might be a vampire, we see the guy, her familiar or whatever, attack the innocent guy in the car with the whole train situation. So we think initially, like obviously I had seen the Swedish one prior, but I think initially, if you've never seen the movie, you might not know there's anything about vampires going on here.
Yeah.
And if there is a thing about vampires, it's that crazy guy in the mask.
You know, it's funny, actually.
Right? And we don't know she's a vampire. That would give it away in the American one if she started just floating down.
What's really funny is that in the Swedish one, there's actually no scene with Hokart and Yeli together until after his first kill, which is part of the incoherence of the whole movie, because you're watching it and you're like, okay, there's like this weird homeless girl that's interacting with this little boy, and then there's this dude murdering people. What does any of this have to do with anything? And then you're like, oh, he's getting yelled at by somebody, and then like miles down the road in the film, you're like, oh, they live together.
Okay, miles. I didn't realize that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. In the American version, they show them getting out of the taxi and then moving into
just that one scene. Mm-hmm. Just the one scene where. Yeah.
And the Swedish one, you see him putting up the boxes and stuff, but you don't actually see Yeli until she's standing on the jungle gym. So there's no connection between the two at all.
Where did she come from?
Interesting.
I legit thought she was a homeless girl that had like mental problems because she was standing on the top of the jungle gym and she walks off it. She's not wearing shoes. You're just like, this girl's like clearly a freaking homeless person.
Dude,
Oscar, don't talk to her. She's
I wish I could watch that movie again with your same insight and not know that it was a vampire movie, because you're just be like, what the fuck is going on?
That's exactly how I felt for the first hour of the film. I had no idea what was going on, and then about 45 minutes in, she kills somebody, and I'm like, she's a vampire? What? And then the movie unfortunately did not make any coherent sense. It was just like
I wish I could have had that. Yeah. I don't remember how I originally heard about this film.
I think it's because of the girl with the dragon tattoo, because that's what got me into the Swedish films first. So actually, you know what? I'm wrong. I saw the Swedish one first because we were watching The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which I believe was 2006, 2007, something like that.
Somewhere in there.
It came out before. And so it kind of a lot of people were like, oh, Swedish cinema is actually pretty good. But yeah, well, really quick, we're starting to run out of time again. I just want to say that I saw the Swedish one first, now that I remember, and then the American one second. I really liked the American one. I think a lot more. For a long time, I really liked the Swedish one because of how slow it was and how it let you like kind of slowly bring yourself into this world and these relationships. But I do like the American one a lot better just because it is snappier. And it makes a lot more sense now that we're going back
so much more sense.
Talking about it, like it makes so much more sense. So Jeremy, which one did you see first?
I saw the Swedish one first, and then I saw the American. But when I watched the American version, I really tried to expel my seeing the Swedish one first. I really kind of wanted to watch it as if I was an average American movie goer who was watching this movie, because most people I got the idea after watching that first one, and it's so artsy. I was like, I know most people who saw this American one, if you saw it in theaters, probably did not watch the Swedish one.
No.
And so I was trying to watch it from that perspective of this is the first introduction I have to it.
And people who knew about the Swedish one were mad that the American one was made, and so that's why.
Absolutely, sure. And there's so much of a comparison going on
because they love
always
the Swedish one so much. Yeah,
right.
And I felt the same way about Old Boy, and I got chastised because I watched the American Old Boy.
How dare you?
Before the original.
I don't know if either one is good, honestly.
And I remember people going, I can't believe you watched the American one first. The American one's not bad. Bronson, or not Pierce Bronson. What's his name?
Thanos.
Who's Thanos? Josh Brolin.
Josh Brolin.
Josh Brolin. The American one's fine. It's a good movie too. But anyway, my point is, I was trying to watch it from the perspective of someone who might have never heard of the Swedish film, and keeping that in mind when I watched it. But no, overall, I have to say I like the American one better too.
Okay,
it's just like Daryl said, it's just more cohesive. It feels like a more cohesive movie.
Moves a lot better.
Yeah.
I think the emotion's deeper.
Was that? Too. Oh, who was the first? I heard Daryl say it last, but maybe you were sorry, Ben. Maybe you were the first person.
I wanted that to be a bit where it's just like me. I want to say that I also want to agree that the American one is a better story, but the Swedish one I think has the stronger leads.
And the Swedish one looks better.
It's just pretty.
There's a lot of shots that look better in the Swedish one.
The American one has the cool, like, one of the best characters who's the cop, but he's definitely number 3. To me, it would be Ellie, then Oscar, and then the American cop, and then, like, everybody else is going to follow those in both films. So I thought the main characters who you spend the most time with in the Swedish version were top notch. Everything else in the Swedish one, besides just the cinematography, was just really kind of all over the place. The American one was like, we got to tell this story to people that aren't going to spend an hour afterwards thinking about it. So let's figure out how to dial that in. And they did a great job. They hit you over the head some stuff, but I can't tell if that's just my bias because I was right about some things in the Swedish one and I didn't really want to know. So yeah, American one, stronger film, definitely.
Okay, Dad.
Oh, American one, of course.
Okay.
For all the reasons I've been stating the whole time. But
good job, Matt Reeves. He did a good job. I know people are hitting a great director. Cloverfield, but I like Matt Reeves.
He's it's Matt Reeves. It's the Superman guy. I didn't even realize.
Mm-hmm. No.
He is the Batman guy, or he's in the middle of directing a Batman movie.
No. Sorry, he put out a YouTube video that made him famous, where he talked about the Superman dying and how it's his favorite comic. That's how I always think of him.
Oh, okay. He also directed some of the new Planet of the Apes films.
The last two, I think, the Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and the other one, which are great movies too. I like those.
Well, I'm Planet of the Apes out, and I'm also an original Planet of the Apes guy too. Anyway, so, but no, I love American for all, like I said, for all the reasons I was saying. It's a stronger love story. It's a stronger story between her familiar, his dedication to her, and then his sacrifice to her. Mean more. It's more poignant, more touching. Just like I said, it's just a better, and it's in the 80s, and man, did they nail the 80s in that film in every level. So, and Reeves is around my age, so he was there for the 80s too. So that's
probably a good point. Yeah,
Danon.
Well, I said my part before, but yeah, American version definitely. So it just made all the improvements that I kind of needed from the Swedish one. So I think it's a really good. And one thing I just want to say really quickly before we go is I think they were a little bit on the nose with the American version because they were so heavy-handed with the vampire lore, and they really didn't stray all that much from it. Didn't try to create anything new. No one's glistening like diamonds. So I think the fact that they were a little bit heavy-handed with how they explain things was because of there's a lot of vampire lore that maybe not everybody knows about. So this is the basics. Right. But I think this was a good way to get an American audience to interact with the very deep rules that vampires have. So,
yep.
All right. Well, we're basically out of time. But yeah, that was our discussion on Let Me In. And then, we need to figure out what we're going to do next week. But I'm Danon Waters.
I'm Daryl Waters.
I'm Jeremy Dallas.
And I'm Ben Nickerson.
And you can catch us on Facebook. You're watching this on YouTube. We're going to be on SoundCloud, Spotify, and iTunes. Spread the word. Guys. Give us a follow on Twitter and Instagram too, because they are all set up now.